a little boxing. I'm in the middle of yard work and boxing training. But I just saw Mike Tyson speaking about the law and speaking about marijuana and speaking about the law and other people's opinions, including experts. They have legalized synthetic stronger than the marijuana, and reportedly it has. I'm not a scientist, I never studied it, but then reportedly and demonstrably it can hurt people other ways. And now they have these little kids going around with those little cartridges. They have like a delivery system for it. Now all these problems too with the borders, they have differences, rackets, roles originally still communicating other than our founders communicated to have communicated for the law, for the names of the people, the sciences, and them for us and for themselves. In other words, there's cruel and unjust punishment to put someone in jail, let alone jails involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes themselves, all kinds of natures and methods of organized crimes. Originally and still, before America's founders were born, there were organized crimes, methods, roles that everyone was only allowed to be roles with. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was adapted to, including if that body was a majority of people, including if it was everybody. And it was adapted to any grouping of nations that tries to counter what this caused and keeps, while as top down and bottom up being and haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw principles, treatments, logic's nature, syntax, treatments. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has people with Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, involved with the World Trade Center in New York City, and with Washington, D.C., interstates, also intrastates, intercampuses, also intra-campuses, also with other police forms there, in a whole bunch of different countries. And like with the extended family members of multiple courts, with the same House/S increasingly involved with fake transcripts with them, and with the interbranch and foreign at the same exact time over criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. This is, for example, there people with the name Scalora have roles of predicate acts, identity thefts, frauds, slanders. They didn't even go to my school. It has roles with the family members of the judges and prosecutors, and with their whole families, with the same house near me. Involved further with an extended family member named Phil Colol, involved with whiting forensics with a bunch of people with tied to them, involved with predicate acts on my street from other areas, and from interbranch switch and forged names. The Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts has a lot of people involved with a Dean Judd with Central Connecticut State University, and his families and other ties to him. Intercities involved with people from Wethersfield, on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw, mass fake transcripts, wire crime acts and methods, whole methods of predicate acts. Now, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them, which also recorded this to get as their collusion after the World Trade Center attack, which also recorded their collusion with names that had been interstates and internationally criminally foreign influence, but also hyper criminally foreign influence. We could discern this for their uses of their differences and of other people's differences. See how people say, oh, no, but the Constitution, so the government doesn't play games. Make someone say something hateful to another type or difference, and then pretend that they're breaking the Constitution's about them not being hateful to others, not affording them a proper, like if they arrest some kids, especially, in other words, especially differentially, because in other words, the kids don't know how to speak about it. And adults don't because you came through campuses. Our founders did not have free speech. You guys did not even allow them to defend it. And they wanted nothing to do with slavery. They had to counter-extort everyone because everyone had an extent/S of roles with that breaching method against every human difference. And everyone collusions against themselves to an extent. otherwise censoring for the breaching method anybody not, including if it's the bodies of the majority of people, including if it's everyone. That's how everyone still gets away with forcing any individual from using as evidence proper how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and a breaching method clearer than day, reassigned with nature communicates with that, and made self-valued rules doing it with the breaching method hyper additional. For hyper additional, even the real motivation is used to hide behind and through by the breaching method. Everyone wants to make these subject treatments. They have the celebrities and the sports stars. Collusion / S pretending things are debatable, changing and faking what we say. Interbranch has been switching and forging names. Many people from Wethersfield judicial branch offices and corrections offices have rules with all kinds of natures of organized crime acts and methods between the campuses through time. And on the sides of and or at CCSU, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, the difference of guilt is also used by the breaching method. And these are names involved directly and indirectly with the ones with the World Trade Center and spots next to it, including names on all sides of the case, in the court right next to the World Trade Center towers that day, and the court itself with a sequence shift from inside the court. The people associated with that and the names at the World Trade Center next to it, and their lawyers. The lawyers are all kinds of scams originally and still, and with not just the difference of if they speak for people or with people or not. If we don't speak with a lawyer, that difference of that too is exploited by the breaching method. There's a trinity here that nature shows. Vaccines. So a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield have roles intercities with names with intelligence next to Central Connecticut State University on the sides of it, as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack before and after it. I was in a class with Mr. Barnett. He's involved with this increasingly with a whole bunch of different countries. People are victims / hyper victims, and they want to be treated that way. But if you try to do it, actually, there are exceptions that are only capable of wanting to have nature debate dishonestly, and or as collusion / S uses truth for lies, or to put it, lies between that. Exception nature use tactile terror from how nature shows us it needs us to appreciate how it uses a special difference distinctly. Nature is a system, honestly never. Honesty doesn't have marijuana classified that way. Hear many pray. Has something to do with it from their founding locations in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut, for example. All along roads and routes, all along, but from Old Wethersfield's Main Street with Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum, then and now, other being and has been communicated for that place. Then our founders communicated to have communicated, had declassified for themselves, have communicated for themselves and for us. Instead, the breaching method held that behind its back, educated the names of the people, the scientists, showed them they needed to keep it, to value that. Value rules pretending they could speak for science legitimately, using principles of American history abridged. As styles, needs of natures, of logic, they can't defend that without self-valuing not having been, but with the principles of logic, fact treatment. You guys have identity theft, fraud, slanders against James Madison and our founders, plural, which includes Native Americans. And you guys want to have nature debate, please get the interbranch on paper, one name and sequence. A whole bunch of people with Harper Courts and the Britain Superior Court have rules with West Hartford locations planting evidences. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. The same ones with intercities through time with the judicial branch office connection, the corrections offices, names and conjunctions right next to it, and or people just temporary there. The difference of that is exploited also, where and how it's recorded, how all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts are putting, and the news, and worse, even criminal enterprises, even when they're not in the cases of all ages and natures, including private ones originally and still. Our founders demonstrated, nature demonstrates for us to demonstrate how private criminal enterprises are speaking, jumping into our conversations dishonestly, let alone the people behind rappers in rap videos. In other words, black people who disbelieves. Guys need to see the whites of eyes. All eyes who disbelieves. Get me off big conversations about the World Trade Center attack by WFSB. They have a bunch of people with UConn and Hartford Hospital with a whole bunch of people on predicate acts on my street through time, various ways, predicate act methods, recorded roles. As the ones increasingly involved with the Wethersfield Police that faced conversations and ties to me as a kid, now as an adult, and at the Wethersfield Police Station. There's also playing the sense and sensibilities of Judge Napolitano by hiding and changing and faking what was actually the value of what is communicated to him and to presidents. Get me off the fake conversations with these people, black people. In other words, and in other words, they have the language, their subject treatments, they're measured and maintained tools by a breaching method. These prisons are criminally poor and influence involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes. And predicate acts with facts, methods, high crimes, way worse than they're putting little kids in jails for. Sick men and women because they came through 6 campuses. Forgiveness is to focus on the principles of act human nature properly and on time. These are increasingly confessions used by the breaching method, distinctly from everyone else, that it shows that they could use confessions because they have to mimic the breaching. With the breaching method needs them to mimic in order for them to pull off what they need to keep other things, others, ourselves blamed for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. Not one identity of integrity has been integrity. Anything but as criminal insidiousness. Our founders' words have been replaced. Our founders' communications have been replaced. Per use/s of their words, self-value leaving out why and how they did not have free speech. Someone must teach. See breach. So they have all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with foreign and domestic medical doctors of psychiatry involved putting fake transcripts, all kinds of natures of organized crimes with their whole families, putting fake things in databases and influencing people that act tied to it. As one's personally and professionally involved with sexual offenders of kids, medical offenders of kids. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the family members of these psychiatry people with families in houses next to the schools, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time. Prepare the mind. They love the right directions to lie, to hide how they have all their roles with all these countries together. They're sick fakes. A through Z, suits and ties, counters, exceptions. Who disbelieves? Get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. Mike Tyson. So they have all kinds of worse, they have all kinds of organized crimes, methods, abuses, multi-front, collusion/S against each age and nature of people at each location, area, and state, everywhere the human species body is. But I'm only speaking about in America. But it's by a hyper foreign. We can't leave this out from where and how there are criminal foreign influences involved too. I'm not even a lawyer. Please get the interbranch on paper, one name and sequence. They have people with the Parks and Recs also with these rackets, with them with all kinds of natures, organized crime, pretend they can speak about law legitimately on off the state capital of Connecticut. Increasingly roles of predicate acts intercities too. Identity theft, fraud, slanders on a mass scale. A whole bunch of identity theft, fraud, slanders, methods, needs, nature, styles emerge when someone tries to use properly how we have black people's whites of eyes as evidence. These are as evidence is generated by nature's identity itself. Nature's identity. Nature's nature comes with this too. You guys prevent free speech. In other words, we would have healed the things from here. All kinds of organized crimes with the prisons and the corrections offices and judicial branch offices. To again, the difference of guilt there or at the names next and the ground distinctions next to it. And are people just traveling by? That difference is exploited. There's a method having the news, all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts, the sources, the lawyers, putting the same self-valued sequence shifts, collusion/S, and because that screens a breaching method, and while their roles, needs, nature, styles doing that, need to self-value that being and haven't been. That's why we have the principles of American history taught as criminal and seditious natures, of principal treatments. and or with relative exceptions and exception nature to those principal treatments taught. Right. Also, it's screened with that. The differences, arrays of opinions A through Z. They change what everyone says to opinion. Black pupils. There is not free speech. There is not science honest regarding any ground locations, impositions, nature showing us with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And so Bach sings but makes us shush to hear. Prefers the shush sound. Some ways a little bit the ha. Wow.